Are you interested in becoming a lawyer in the state of California? In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how you do that. I'm going to take you from zero to being sworn in as an attorney, all the steps you need to take to get there, and I'm going to be walking through piece by piece exactly what you need to do to become an attorney in the state of California. Before we get started, be sure to check out barcastaudio.com. The links below. If you are somebody who's thinking about going to law school, we have our pre-law school prep course, one-on-one mentorship, all sorts of audio outlines, everything you could possibly need to prepare you for law school, we have it over at barcastaudio.com. Check out the link below. Now, let's jump right into this. How do I become an attorney in the state of California? So very simply, you start with going to school. And the weird thing about California is you don't actually have to graduate a 4-year college, like you do in many, many other states. In the state of California, they have these alternative pathways to becoming an attorney. You only need 2 years of undergraduate study or 4 years of undergraduate study. So if you have 4 years of undergraduate study, it's the most conventional way that people go to law school. The vast majority of law students who have who go to law school in California do have those 4 years. But there is an alternative pathway available to you if you only have 2 years of study, and that is to have 4 years of what's called lawyer mentorship, where you don't actually have to go to law school. So before you do that, let's talk about a few of the options here. So after you go to college, undergraduate, what should you major in? The answer generally depends. I mean, there are certain majors that sort of lend themselves more to law school, like political science, pre-law, but you don't need to major in any of those things. Really, what matters most coming out of your undergraduate studies is your GPA, because that will allow you more opportunities to become an attorney by applying to better law schools or by getting scholarship money. So what you really want to emphasize in your undergraduate studies is, one, GPA, what can you score well in, so your packet when you're applying to law schools is better, and two, what I like to think of as like thinking classes. So sometimes I recommend students go to school for like math or take a math course, because law school essays and the way you're tested on the bar exam and in law school is very often a little bit more akin to a word math problem than it is to a true essay. So a lot of times people go to law school because they're told that they're good writers, they're good arguers, and those skills aren't necessarily one-to-one. What you want to do is maybe step outside your comfort zone a little bit and take a math course that you're generally not going to fail, or it's not going to tank your GPA, but that does prepare you a little bit for the way that hypotheticals in law school are formulated. Okay, so now that you sort of know all that, you've gone to school, you need to appreciate what your options are. So before you go to law school, if you are somebody who's going the law school pathway, you need to take the LSAT, or some law schools accept the GRE, but generally you need to take the LSAT, which is the pre-law school examination. It is a one-day examination that gives you a score generally between 140 and 180, which you use to apply for law school. It's part of your law school application packet. It is the standardized test that most law schools use to assess your sort of acumen and assess where you fit in as a student. And generally you want to score as high as you can there. I know that anything over 160 typically, I know there's some inflated scores now, will give you better opportunities. So you want to get generally above that 160. I know plenty of students who've done really well with a score less than 160, but generally that's what I try to recommend to students. You'll have more flexibility, more options if you score above a 160. But do your best, do whatever you can, and then you use that as part of your application process. You'll have personal essays, you'll have maybe letters of recommendation as part of this law school packet application, but generally the two stats that matter the most in terms of getting into law schools, in terms of getting scholarship money, are that GPA that I referenced before and your LSAT score. So try everything in your power to prepare yourself to get into the best position you can financially, so you're not getting maybe $250,000 of student loans, and also in terms of getting into better schools. Now, in the state of California, there are a lot of law schools, and you may have heard that the state of California actually has one of the lowest bar exam pass rates in the entire country. And it's a little bit skewed, that pass rate, and it's often called the hardest test in the entire country, bar exam, and I think that is also skewed to some degree, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but let's circle back now to you've taken the LSAT, you've applied to law school. You need to then appreciate what your path is going to be. Are you going to get into and go to an ABA-approved law school, which is the American Bar Association, which has approved many law schools in the state of California? This is, again, the most conventional path, but you don't actually have to go to an ABA-approved law school in California to become an attorney. You have those other alternative paths that I mentioned to you before. You can go to what's called a California-accredited law school or an unaccredited law school. Bar exam takers are allowed to, you can still become an attorney by going to a non-accredited law school, despite the fact that it's not ABA accredited in the state of California. And it is unique in that fact. And the fact that students who are attending unaccredited and California accredited law schools can still take these exams is part of the reason why we see some of the passage rates not as high as otherwise. If you look purely at ABA students who went to ABA law schools who take the California bar exam, the passage rate is not nearly as low as it is often sort of sold to students. I know there are stats thrown out there like 60% of all California bar exam takers fail the exam. And if you do like zoom out and you look at the fact that many of those students are not attending ABA law schools, those stats are a lot less daunting. So generally I recommend you go to an ABA law school. If you don't have that opportunity, if that's not something you can do, of course look into schools that might otherwise give you money, California approved law schools. But you have to appreciate what that changes and what that sort of means if you're going to a non-accredited school or a California accredited school. Students who go to those schools after their first year have to take what's called the baby bar exam. Now, before I dive into the baby bar exam, I want to circle back again to this idea of apprenticeship, right? The law school office study program where you can work for an attorney for approximately 4 years and then be certified to take the California bar exam. Now, after a certain period of time while you're working in this law school study program, you also have to take this baby bar exam in order to take the larger bar exam to become an attorney. And the baby bar exam is almost like the first step to students who are not going the ABA route to maintain and to continue on the path of attempting to become a California attorney. So if you go to an unaccredited or a California accredited, or you're doing the law study program where you're not going to law school at all, you have to take the California bar exam. And the baby bar exam does not actually test all the same subjects as the regular bar exam. It tests only 3 subjects. It is contracts, criminal law, and torts, which are central subjects to your law school education, but they're not the only subjects tested on the bar exam. It's like a mini version of this. It's a one-day exam. It's 4 essay questions and then 100 multiple choice. You generally have to pass, get like a 70% around to pass this exam. And this exam is very hard, very difficult. It's difficult for me to say whether it's the difficulty of the exam itself or the students who are being afforded the opportunity to take this exam, because a lot of them are not conventionally educated, like through the ABA approved law school. But the passage rate generally we see is around 20%. So that means 80% of baby bar exam takers are not passing this exam. So that's why, while certainly there are opportunities available to you if you're going outside the ABA, you may not have the same opportunities or the same likelihood of getting through that. Kim Kardashian, who has famously been involved in trying to become an attorney, she could not pass this baby bar exam despite multiple efforts. It's a very challenging exam, especially if you're not going the conventional law school route, and that was a big challenge for her at getting over this hurdle. Ultimately, I think she put that aside because she just couldn't get through this baby bar exam process, and a lot of students ultimately do that. If you don't pass at the end of your first year of the California approved bar law school or unaccredited law school, you're just kind of out of luck. You're not going to be able to take the regular bar exam to become an attorney. But if you do, you get to continue through your studies. Now, generally law school, if you're continuing through law school, you will be there for 3 years. You will learn all sorts of subjects. If you're in ABA or California or an unaccredited school, you're going to be learning con law, constitutional law, criminal law, torts, civil procedure, contracts, ethics, all that kind of stuff. And you'll go there for about 3 years. I don't want to yada the 3 years. There's a lot that goes on in those 3 years. For the most part, you really want to get good grades in your first year of law school, because many times you're using your first year of law school grades to apply for jobs over the summer of your first year summer, your 1L summer, or your second year summer, your 2L summer. Generally, where you intern in your 2L summer is going to be where you're getting job offers to return after graduation. So your first year grades are really, really important. That's what makes this process so stressful. That's why over at Barcast we have this law school mentorship process, because of how important that first year is. And we think it's really worth the investment for students to do everything they can to put themselves in the best position possible to get the jobs that they want by investing early and preparing themselves for the law school process, preparing themselves for that first year of law school. Okay, moving on. Let's talk now about at the end of your first year of regular law school, assuming you're not in a California school, you take your final exams, you try to get a job for the summer. Many schools will do what's called on-campus interviews, where you apply for internships for that 2L summer at big law firms, or generally law firms that may employ you and ultimately hire you after graduation. Now, your second year of law school, you're going to take many electives. You'll have a little bit more flexibility with your schedule itself, but you're going to learn things like legal writing in your first year and your second second year, you're going to do maybe more clinical classes where you're doing one-on-one actual lawyerly type work. And generally your experiences your second year are going to closely mirror your first year. Many students do a journal, which is again a lot of work where you're helping sort of publish articles for the law school. And the workload is different, but it is also challenging. Now, many students call it the third year of law school 3 LOL because at that point you've probably worked somewhere over the summer. You may think that you have a job, but don't fret if you don't have a job at that point. Many times students don't. You're still trying to line something up throughout that third year process. But generally, your grades don't matter as much throughout this third year process unless you don't have a job, because that is a part of your ultimate application packet at this stage of your educational career. So you get through the 3 years of law school. That's when you're going to really start to prepare for the major bar exam, the real California bar exam. Because at the end of law school, you graduate, and then you're going to take the California bar exam. In order to take the California bar exam, you're probably going to want to invest in a course of some kind. There's various bar exam courses. We offer a bar exam course for the UBE and the MBE because the California bar exam is a 2-day examination meant to test your larger knowledge of the law. Let's say you're at an ABA or a non-ABA approved school or a California bar exam school, or you did the law study program and you passed the baby bar exam. You're one of that 20%. And now you move on to, you continue to either work through California bar exam school or a California accredited school, or you continue through the study program. And then at the conclusion of either program, you're afforded the opportunity to take the California bar exam, just like the people who went to the ABA school at the end of their 3 years. So regardless, everyone reaches this final point, this final hurdle to taking the bar exam. Generally, before the California bar exam, before any of these students take it, many times the 2L summer before your third year, you'll take what's called the MPRE, which is an ethics exam. It's a 100 questions, 1-day exam. It's generally about 3 hours, and it's just about the ethics, professional ethics, and you need to get a passing score in order to ultimately practice law, to get over that final hurdle. You don't necessarily need this before taking the bar exam, but it is encouraged because otherwise you have to then take another exam after the bar exam, and you don't want to do that. You're going to be so tired, so exhausted mentally from this process that you want to get this out of the way as early as possible. In order to take the California bar exam prior to this, you're going to also supply what's called your character and fitness application, which is all about whether you're fit background-wise to practice law. When I say background-wise, they're looking for like criminality in your past. Have you ever been convicted of a felony like theft? Because they don't want to allow lawyers to pass the bar exam and then pass what's called character and fitness and become attorneys if they've stolen funds before, if there's somebody who may abscond with their client's money. They don't want to do that. So keep that in mind. If you have a criminal past, honesty is always the best policy. You want to make sure that your law school knows about it. You want to make sure that you're telling your character and fitness people. I mean, if you got a parking ticket, I know that sometimes people tell you like you got to put everything on there. I don't know that that's necessarily relevant. But again, consult with your student services office, consult with your school, consult with other people before you get into that sort of process of character and fitness. Now, the California bar exam is made up of a 2-day examination. The first day is going to be 5 one-hour essays, approximately 1-hour essays, 5 longer essays, testing California law in conjunction with the multi-state concept. So that's going to be torts, contracts, ethics, criminal law, civil procedure, constitutional law, and California-specific elements of those laws. Also, there is a performance test, one performance test included within that 6-hour window. So essentially, over the course of 2 3-hour sessions, you have 6 essays, and they are longer essays than you would take on the uniform bar exam. They are a little bit more detailed. They have a little bit more issues as opposed to these 6 shorter essays and then 2 performance tests that you take on the uniform bar exam. Now, the second day of the California bar exam is what's called the multi-state bar exam. Is a 2-part, 2 3-hour session, 200 question multiple choice set. The tests contracts, civil procedure, con law, criminal law, property law, torts, and one that I'm whiffing on, maybe constitutional law. And essentially it's going to be multiple choice questions, difficult multiple choice questions. This is going to be changing somewhat as the next gen bar exam is being implemented over the next couple of years, but generally it's going to remain the same. There's going to be a national day for the California bar exam. There's always going to be the California day of the California bar exam. Now, assuming that you take this examination and you pass, the California bar exam is administered at the end of July, typically. And before you take the California bar exam, you will have studied for approximately 8 weeks, concentrated study. That's what we recommend. I know not every student has the capability to just devote themselves for 8 weeks, not work, to doing this. But to the best of your ability, you really kind of have to try because that is kind of what it demands. If you are somebody who has to work during this period or do something else, what you really need to do is start earlier and delegate and sort of work it out so that you're still doing all the material in the lead up to the exam, but you just have a little bit more time. So maybe you prepare a little bit earlier so you can account for the fact that you need to work and you're going to be unavailable for certain days. Generally, we're looking at like 300 to 400 hours of study time to pass this exam. I don't say that to scare you or frighten you. It's just the practical reality of what we need to do to pass this exam. If we do pass this exam, you've already done character and fitness. You're essentially over the hump. You get an acknowledgement of passing, typically in like September, October, November, and then it's over. You've become an attorney, because after that you need to be sworn in by the California Supreme Court. This process, it takes some time, obviously. There's usually an in-person swearing-in ceremony where you are afforded either signing a book or there's like a photo op. But it's a nice sort of capstone on this process that officially welcomes you to the profession of becoming an attorney. And what's nice about California is that much of the character and fitness stuff is done before the exam, so you don't have to wait as much with California as you do with some other states. Now, this has been sort of a step-by-step process to walking through how to become an attorney in the state of California. I hope this was helpful to you wherever you are in your lawyer or law school journey. Be sure to check us out at barcastaudio.com. The link's below if you are interested in our one-on-one mentorship program, in our law school Head Start program, because we think it puts students in a really, really good position as they're entering law school. And we've seen a lot of great results in terms of how students are scoring and how they are getting opportunities coming out of law school from a job perspective that they otherwise would not. So until later, be sure to subscribe to the 312. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more of these videos. Until later, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye now.